There's something truly powerful about being able to walk into a room, speak with clarity, and feel like your words actually matter. For many people, though, this kind of confidence doesn't come naturally. The good news is that confidence is not something you're simply born with or without. It's a skill, and like any skill, it can be learned, practiced, and mastered. This journey begins with understanding yourself, your voice, your body, and the way you connect with others. We all carry around a mental script, thoughts and beliefs that tell us whether we're good at speaking, whether people will listen to us, or whether we'll embarrass ourselves if we try. That script can be rewritten. You don't need to be the loudest person in the room to have authority. You don't need to be flawless or charismatic from birth. What you do need is awareness and a willingness to grow, to learn how to communicate in a way that reflects your inner strength. Confidence starts on the inside, but it shows up on the outside. Think about the last time you saw someone truly confident. Maybe they didn't even say much, but something about the way they stood, the way they looked around the room, the calmness in their voice, it all spoke volumes. This is the power of nonverbal communication, something we often underestimate. Your body language is like a silent partner in every conversation. When you align your posture, your gestures, and your facial expressions with your message, you amplify your impact without saying an extra word. One of the foundational steps to speaking with confidence is owning your space. Imagine standing tall, shoulders relaxed but firm, eyes engaged, not staring, but present. Breathe deeply. Let your voice come from a place of calm, not tension. It's amazing how much your message can change simply because you slowed down and grounded yourself before speaking. Most people speak too fast when they're nervous, trying to get the words out before fear catches up to them. But when you slow down, you send a message to others, and to yourself, that you are in control. Another powerful concept from Sebastian Clarke's approach is that people respond not just to what you say, but to how you say it. This includes your tone, your rhythm, and even your pauses. A pause at the right moment can make your words land more effectively than a whole paragraph spoken without a breath. People need space to process what you're saying. When you rush, they miss it. When you allow space, you create connection. But confidence isn't only for public speaking or formal situations. It matters in everyday life, in job interviews, in team meetings, in conversations with your boss, or even at dinner with friends. The more you practice speaking from a place of self-assurance, the more natural it becomes. You begin to notice how people lean in when you speak, how they trust you more, how your presence becomes more magnetic. This isn't magic. It's the result of conscious practice. And practice doesn't mean being perfect. In fact, perfection often gets in the way of growth. Real communication is messy sometimes. It's human. What matters is presence, clarity, and intention. When you speak with intention, people feel it. They might not remember every word you said, but they will remember how you made them feel. That's the essence of impactful communication. Many people struggle with social anxiety, which can make even simple conversations feel overwhelming. If that's something you experience, know that you're not alone, and more importantly, that you're not broken. Social anxiety is not a fixed part of who you are. It's a learned response to certain situations, and it can be unlearned. One helpful technique is to shift your focus from yourself to the person you're speaking with. Anxiety often comes from being overly focused on how you're being perceived. But when you place your attention on listening, on being curious, on truly engaging with others, the anxiety starts to loosen its grip. Another important shift is moving from performance to presence. You don't need to perform in social situations. You just need to show up. When you approach a conversation as a shared experience, rather than a test you need to pass, everything changes. You give yourself permission to be real, to make mistakes, to laugh, to connect. That authenticity is what draws people in. You don't have to be the funniest, the smartest, or the most charming. You just need to be real. Persuasion is another area where strong communication skills can change your life. Whether you're leading a team, applying for a promotion, or trying to influence someone's opinion, your ability to persuade is directly tied to your ability to connect. People are more likely to be influenced by those they trust, respect, and feel heard by. Persuasion isn't about manipulation, it's about alignment. It's about helping others see what you see, not because you pressured them, but because you guided them. In his book, Clark emphasizes the role of empathy in persuasion. Understanding where the other person is coming from, acknowledging their concerns, and speaking to their values makes all the difference. Instead of bulldozing your way through a conversation, try asking questions. Invite others into your thinking. Show them that you value their perspective. When people feel seen and respected, they open up. That's when influence becomes possible. Leadership is also rooted in communication. The best leaders aren't the ones who talk the most, they're the ones who listen, who inspire, who bring clarity in moments of confusion. They know how to speak to the heart of an issue without creating fear or pressure. They create a sense of safety that allows others to thrive. And they model the kind of presence that others want to follow. You don't have to be in a formal leadership role to develop these qualities. Leadership starts with how you show up in your own life, with your colleagues, your family, your friends. When you take responsibility for your words, when you learn to listen deeply, when you become intentional with your communication, you naturally step into a more influential space. People begin to look to you, not because you demand it, but because you've earned it. We live in a world where distractions are everywhere. Real connection is becoming rare. That's why mastering your communication skills is more important now than ever. It's not just about getting what you want, it's about creating relationships that matter, making an impact, and becoming someone others trust and respect. As you begin to apply the tools from the first part, something remarkable happens. You don't just speak more confidently, you start feeling more confident. This is because real confidence doesn't come from pretending to be someone you're not. It comes from developing a deep trust in your own ability to communicate, to stay grounded, and to connect with others, even when the pressure is on. Now, let's talk about a critical piece of communication that's often overlooked: presence. Presence is the quiet, steady energy you bring into a room. It's the way you hold yourself, how you listen, and the calm assurance you radiate, even in silence. People feel it before you say anything. And presence is powerful. In fact, sometimes it communicates more than your words ever could. To develop your presence, you have to slow down. Breathe deeply. Make space in your mind. When you stop rushing to fill every silence and begin to truly be with others, your words carry more weight. You're not just reacting, you're choosing. And that choice, that pause, shows others that you're grounded and thoughtful. It signals that you're a leader, even when you're not in charge. But being present isn't always easy, especially if you struggle with anxiety or feel pressure to perform. Many people with social anxiety think they have to prove themselves in every interaction. That belief can be exhausting. But the truth is, your worth doesn't depend on how impressive you sound. It depends on your willingness to be real. When you stop trying to impress and start trying to connect, everything changes. That's where active listening becomes essential. Listening with full attention is not just polite, it's magnetic. When someone feels truly heard, they automatically feel more drawn to you. And here's the thing, good listeners are often remembered more fondly than great talkers. Why? Because people crave understanding more than entertainment. To practice active listening, try to shift your focus from what you'll say next to what the other person is really saying. Pay attention to tone, pauses, and body language. Is there emotion beneath their words? Is there something they're not saying directly? These subtle cues are often where the real message lives. And when you respond, do it with empathy. That doesn't mean you have to agree with everything, but show that you get it, that you're present with them, not distracted or rehearsing your next line. This kind of listening builds connection faster than anything else. It also helps you become more persuasive, because people are more open to ideas when they feel respected and heard. Speaking of persuasion, Sebastian Clarke emphasizes that real influence isn't about forcing people to agree with you. It's about aligning with them. It's understanding their needs, fears, and desires, and then framing your message in a way that connects with those things. When people feel like you understand them, they're far more willing to listen and even follow your lead. Let's say you're in a work meeting and you have an idea that could really help the team. Instead of charging in and saying, "We should do this," take a moment to acknowledge the team's concerns. You might say something like, "I know we're all feeling stretched thin, and we want to make smart choices moving forward." That small gesture of understanding builds trust. It shows that you're not just pushing your own agenda, you're part of the group. And that's what real leadership looks like. Leadership is not about being the loudest or most charismatic person in the room. It's about clarity, consistency, and connection. When you speak, do people understand what you mean? Do they know what to expect from you? Can they trust that you'll listen when they speak? These are the qualities that make people want to follow you, whether you have an official title or not. And here's where body language plays a major role. Even if you say all the right words, your body might be saying something else. If your arms are crossed, your shoulders tense, or your eyes darting around the room, people might sense insecurity or discomfort, even if you're trying to sound confident. But when your posture is open, your hands are relaxed, and you maintain steady eye contact, you send a completely different message. You show calm, strength, and presence. One helpful trick is to adopt what Clarke calls a neutral powerful posture. Stand or sit with your feet grounded, your shoulders back but relaxed, and your chin level. Imagine a string gently lifting your head upward. This posture tells your nervous system that you're safe and in control. And it tells others the same. Another subtle but powerful tip: slow down your speech. When you speak too fast, you often come across as nervous or uncertain, even if your words are intelligent. But when you slow down, pause intentionally, and give space between thoughts, you sound more thoughtful and confident. People take your words more seriously because you do. And if you're thinking, "But what if I don't feel confident?" that's okay. You can still act confident. The body and mind are closely connected. When you move and speak like a confident person, your brain starts to believe it. Over time, that belief becomes reality. Of course, all of this takes practice. You won't master it overnight, and that's perfectly fine. Start small. In your next conversation, focus on listening fully. Pay attention to your posture. Pause before speaking. These small changes add up quickly. And the more you practice, the easier it becomes. What's most important is your mindset. Instead of saying, "I'm not good at communicating," try saying, "I'm learning to communicate more clearly." That small shift changes everything. It takes you out of a fixed mindset and into a growth mindset. And from there, progress is inevitable. Because ultimately, communication is a skill, just like learning to ride a bike or play an instrument. It may feel awkward at first. You might stumble or say the wrong thing. But that's okay. Every great communicator you admire went through the same learning process. They weren't born confident. They became confident through practice, reflection, and persistence. So be patient with yourself. Celebrate small wins. Maybe today you maintained eye contact in a conversation that would have made you nervous last month. That's progress. Maybe you paused before responding instead of blurting something out. That's growth. These little victories are signs that you're becoming the kind of communicator people trust, respect, and remember. And as your skills grow, you'll start to notice a ripple effect in every area of your life. Your relationships become deeper. Your work becomes more fulfilling. You feel more at ease in your own skin. That's the real reward, not just being a good speaker, but being someone who connects with others in meaningful, lasting ways. As you continue developing these communication habits, you'll notice how much easier it becomes to navigate challenging situations. Where you once might have avoided confrontation or stayed quiet in group settings, now you find yourself stepping forward, not to dominate, but to contribute. And that shift is powerful. It shows you've built a foundation of inner confidence strong enough to support real interaction, not just surface-level small talk. Many people think communication is about speaking, but just as much of it is about managing your emotions. The fear of judgment, the anxiety of being misunderstood, the discomfort of silence, all of these are emotions that can take over and sabotage a moment. But once you learn to regulate those feelings, everything changes. You begin to feel in control, even in unpredictable social environments. Sebastian Clarke emphasizes emotional awareness as a pillar of great communication. He doesn't just mean being aware of others' emotions, but your own. What are you feeling before you walk into that meeting? Why do your hands sweat when you speak to your boss? Why do you freeze up when it's your turn to share? These reactions are signals, and once you learn to decode them, you can respond to them in a healthier way. The goal isn't to eliminate fear completely, that's impossible. The goal is to understand that fear doesn't have to stop you. When you name what you're feeling and breathe through it, you take its power away. Suddenly, the tightness in your chest becomes manageable. Your voice steadies. You begin to trust yourself in those critical moments. This trust leads to a more compelling presence. Think of the people you admire most, maybe a manager, a public speaker, a mentor. What draws you to them? It's not just what they say. It's how they say it. It's the comfort they exude in their own skin, the ease with which they interact, the way they command attention without begging for it. And you might be surprised to learn that many of those people once struggled too. Most confident communicators weren't born that way. They built their skills, layer by layer, over time. They practiced standing tall when they felt small. They kept speaking up, even when their voice shook. And they gave themselves permission to learn from every experience, not just the successful ones. That mindset is a form of resilience. And resilient communicators don't crumble under pressure, they adapt. They don't see mistakes as proof of failure, but as opportunities for growth. That's why your attitude matters so much more than your talent. You can always learn the right words, the best tone, the perfect pacing, but without the right mindset, none of it sticks. Clarke also reminds us that communication is a mirror. People reflect back to you the energy you bring into a room. If you show up nervous and guarded, others will mirror that hesitation. But if you arrive open, curious, and calm, people will feel safer around you. They'll relax. They'll listen. They'll engage more deeply. So how do you create that sense of calm, especially in high-stakes situations like job interviews, public presentations, or leadership roles? One of the most effective strategies is visualization. Before any big moment, close your eyes and see yourself succeeding. Imagine walking into the room with your shoulders back, speaking clearly, making eye contact, and connecting with others. Visualization isn't just a mental trick, it's a form of rehearsal that builds confidence on a subconscious level. Another strategy Clarke shares is self-anchoring. This involves creating a physical cue, like pressing your thumb and forefinger together, while thinking of a time you felt completely in control and proud of how you handled yourself. Doing this repeatedly trains your brain to associate the gesture with confidence. Over time, you can use it in real-life situations to calm your nerves and center yourself instantly. These tools might sound simple, and they are. But simple doesn't mean ineffective. In fact, the most powerful communication strategies are often the easiest to overlook. Things like posture, breathing, eye contact, pace, tone, they're subtle, but together they send a clear message: I'm here. I'm grounded. I'm listening. When you combine that energy with clear, purposeful speech, people notice. They lean in. They remember what you said, not just the words, but the feeling you gave them. That's what truly great communicators do. They make others feel safe, seen, and understood. And you can do the same, whether you're in a boardroom, a classroom, a cafe, or a casual conversation with friends. You don't need a spotlight. You don't need to be the loudest voice. You just need to show up with intention and presence. Leadership is one of the areas where this matters most. You don't have to be in a management position to be a leader. Leadership happens whenever you influence others, guide a conversation, or set a tone for a group. And great leaders aren't necessarily extroverts or experts. They're people who listen deeply, respond thoughtfully, and act consistently. Consistency is key. When people know what to expect from you, they trust you more. That doesn't mean you have to be perfect. It means you're dependable. You follow through on your words. You don't shift with every breeze or echo whatever the loudest voice is saying. You stay aligned with your values, and people respect that. And when you do speak, your words carry more weight. Why? Because you haven't diluted them. You've earned attention, not demanded it. That's a hallmark of influential communicators. They don't force others to listen, they invite listening through their clarity, authenticity, and quiet strength. Clarke's approach encourages us to value our inner voice. Not the critical, fearful one that says, "You're not good enough," but the wise, steady one that says, "You're growing. Keep going." When you tune into that voice, communication becomes less about performance and more about connection. That shift has a ripple effect. You start to see improvements in your relationships, romantic, professional, and social. People start to open up more. You find it easier to express yourself without overthinking. Your boundaries become clearer. Your self-respect grows. And maybe most importantly, you start to enjoy communication again. It stops being a chore and becomes a natural expression of who you are. This is especially powerful for those who have felt silenced, overlooked, or misunderstood. You don't have to shout to be heard. You don't have to dominate a conversation to be influential. You just have to show up, be present, and speak from a place of honesty and care. And if you ever feel like you're slipping back into old patterns, rushing your words, shrinking your posture, doubting your ideas, that's okay too. Awareness is progress. Every step you take, even the small ones, brings you closer to becoming the communicator you want to be. Now that you're beginning to see yourself as someone capable of confident, effective communication, it's time to explore how these skills can elevate your daily life, especially in your career and personal relationships. Think of communication not just as a tool, but as a bridge. It connects who you are with how the world sees you. And when that bridge is strong, opportunities flow more easily in both directions. In the workplace, good communication can make the difference between being seen as someone who simply does their job and being recognized as a leader. It's not about speaking more, it's about speaking with purpose. When you offer ideas, ask questions, and share insights clearly and respectfully, people begin to rely on your voice. They trust your input. And that trust often leads to new responsibilities, promotions, and greater influence. But here's something important: influence doesn't always come from being the smartest person in the room. Often, it comes from being the person who listens the best. People want to feel heard. They want to feel understood. When you reflect their ideas back to them with empathy, when you make space for their thoughts, you instantly stand out, not because you're louder, but because you care more. Sebastian Clarke emphasizes that leadership through communication is about emotional intelligence. It's about reading the room, adjusting your approach based on who you're talking to, and staying calm even when others are reactive. That kind of calm, grounded energy is magnetic. It shows emotional maturity, and people are naturally drawn to it. One of the most valuable things you can do in any interaction is pause before responding. That pause may be just a second or two, but it gives your brain time to catch up with your heart. It allows you to consider the impact of your words, not just their accuracy. It transforms reactive speech into thoughtful communication. That's where your body language plays a huge role too. Nonverbal cues often speak louder than words. If your tone is calm but your arms are crossed tightly, your message may be misinterpreted. If you say you're open to feedback but avoid eye contact and lean away from the person, your actions suggest otherwise. Clarke encourages us to align our words with our posture, gestures, and expressions. You don't need exaggerated movements. Subtle shifts, like nodding while someone speaks, maintaining an open stance, or offering a genuine smile, can dramatically improve how your message is received. When your body says, "I'm engaged and present," people feel more connected to you instantly. This applies not only in formal settings but also in everyday conversations. Think about the last time someone truly listened to you, not while checking their phone, not waiting for their turn to speak, but really listening. How did that feel? That's the kind of presence we all crave, and it's the kind of presence you can give others starting right now. The truth is, presence is persuasive. You don't need fancy language or perfect arguments to be persuasive. You need clarity, confidence, and compassion. When people sense that you believe in what you're saying, and that you care about how it lands with them, they're more likely to agree, support, and follow. One way to build this presence is through storytelling. Humans are wired to respond to stories. They engage our emotions, help us remember key ideas, and create a sense of connection. When you share a personal example or a brief anecdote that illustrates your point, you become more relatable. You move beyond abstract concepts and into shared human experience. Clarke recommends practicing small, everyday storytelling moments, like describing a challenge you overcame at work, a lesson you learned from a mistake, or a moment of surprise or growth. These stories don't have to be dramatic. In fact, their power lies in their simplicity. What matters is that they're authentic and connected to your message. This becomes especially useful in moments of disagreement. Instead of launching into debate mode, you can shift the tone by saying, "That reminds me of a time when," or "Let me share where I'm coming from." Suddenly, the conversation softens. Walls come down. And mutual understanding becomes possible. Remember, your goal isn't to win every conversation. It's to create conversations where both sides feel respected and understood. That's real influence. And it has the power to transform not just your career, but your personal relationships as well. In friendships and romantic relationships, communication is the lifeline. When you express appreciation regularly, clarify your needs without blame, and listen without interrupting, trust grows. Misunderstandings shrink. Conflicts become easier to navigate. But it's not always easy. Especially if you grew up in environments where emotions were suppressed or communication was modeled poorly. You might have learned to shut down, explode, or avoid difficult topics altogether. That's normal. And it's something you can absolutely unlearn. Clarke encourages self-compassion here. Communication is not about perfection, it's about progress. Every honest conversation you have, every moment you choose to listen instead of react, Every time you ask for clarification instead of making assumptions, that's a step toward becoming a more grounded, emotionally intelligent communicator. This emotional intelligence also helps you overcome one of the most common barriers to communication: social anxiety. Feeling nervous before speaking is normal. But when that anxiety stops you from showing up, it becomes a problem. And the solution isn't to just be more confident. That advice, while well-meaning, is vague and unhelpful. Confidence isn't something you wait for. It's something you build by taking small, consistent risks. Speaking up in a meeting, introducing yourself to someone new, asking a thoughtful question during a conversation, each of these actions trains your brain to realize, hey, that wasn't so bad. And over time, your comfort zone expands. You don't need to force yourself into loud, extroverted behavior to overcome social anxiety. You just need to prove to yourself, one moment at a time, that you can survive discomfort. That you can be awkward and still be okay. That you can speak and still be worthy, even if your voice shakes or your heart races. Overcoming social anxiety isn't about becoming fearless. It's about becoming braver. And bravery grows when you treat yourself with kindness, celebrate small wins, and stop comparing your progress to anyone else's. You're on your own journey, and every step forward counts. With each small risk, your communication becomes less about performance and more about connection. And connection is what truly matters, not impressing people, but connecting with them. That's what makes you memorable. That's what makes you influential. That's what makes you you. As you move forward in your journey to becoming a confident communicator, it's essential to remember that this is a lifelong process. There will always be new situations, new people, and new challenges that test your skills. But the more you practice, the more natural it becomes. What once felt intimidating will start to feel empowering. One of the most valuable shifts you can make is to stop seeing communication as something you perform, and instead view it as a way to connect with others. This shift takes the pressure off. You don't need to impress anyone, you simply need to be present, honest, and engaged. That authenticity is what builds trust, and trust is what builds strong relationships. Sebastian Clark highlights how small daily habits are what truly shape your communication style. It's not the occasional big speech that matters most, it's the everyday moments. Saying thank you. Offering feedback kindly. Asking how someone is doing and really meaning it. These moments create a pattern, and that pattern becomes your personal communication identity. Over time, people come to know you as someone who speaks with clarity and kindness, someone who listens, someone who brings calm instead of chaos. And that reputation can open doors in your career, deepen your relationships, and make life feel more connected and meaningful. Of course, there will be times when you stumble. Maybe you'll say something you regret. Maybe you'll freeze up in a meeting. Maybe your message won't land the way you hoped. That's okay. Mistakes are part of the process. What matters most is how you respond to them. Instead of beating yourself up, pause and reflect. Ask yourself what you learned. Could you have prepared differently? Could you have phrased things more clearly? Could you follow up and clarify? These questions aren't about judging yourself, they're about growing. Clark encourages us to embrace mistakes as feedback, not failure. Every misstep is a lesson that brings you closer to mastery. And mastery doesn't mean perfection. It means developing enough self-awareness and skill to adjust and adapt with grace. One powerful way to accelerate your growth is to seek out feedback from people you trust. Ask them how you come across in conversations. Are there habits you have that might be holding you back? Do you interrupt too often? Do you avoid eye contact? Do you tend to speak too softly or too quickly? This kind of feedback can be uncomfortable, but it's also incredibly useful. And when you ask for it with openness and gratitude, you show that you're serious about growing. That level of humility is rare and deeply respected. As you gather feedback, be sure to celebrate the things you're doing well too. It's easy to focus only on what needs improvement, but recognizing your strengths is just as important. Maybe you're great at making people feel comfortable. Maybe you're excellent at explaining complex ideas in simple terms. Maybe your sense of humor lightens tense situations. These are gifts. Don't overlook them. And don't underestimate the ripple effect of your communication growth. When you communicate with empathy and confidence, you give others permission to do the same. You raise the standard for how people treat one another. You create safer spaces for honesty and vulnerability. You lead by example. That's what true leadership looks like, not controlling others, but inspiring them through your actions. And when your words match your values, people notice. They feel your integrity. And they begin to trust you, not just with tasks, but with ideas, emotions, and decisions. This kind of trust is what fuels meaningful collaboration. It's what makes teams thrive, friendships deepen, and communities grow stronger. And it all starts with one person, you, choosing to speak with purpose, listen with presence, and act with integrity. You don't need to have all the answers. You don't need to be the loudest in the room. You just need to keep showing up, one conversation at a time. Every time you do, you refine your voice. You build your confidence. You expand your impact. If you ever feel discouraged, come back to this truth: communication is a skill, not a talent. It can be learned. It can be practiced. And it can be improved at any age, in any profession, and in any personality type. You don't have to become someone you're not, you just have to become more of who you already are, with clarity and courage. And that's what this entire journey is about. Not becoming perfect. Not becoming impressive. But becoming authentic, empowered, and effective. Think about the people you admire most. Chances are, they're not flawless. But they're real. They speak from the heart. They listen deeply. They make others feel seen and valued. That's what great communication looks like. And you are fully capable of embodying that, starting right now. Start with the next conversation you have today. Can you pause and really listen? Can you express yourself clearly, without rushing or apologizing unnecessarily? Can you notice your body language and adjust it to match your intention? These small moments matter. They matter because they add up. One good interaction leads to another. One brave question leads to deeper connection. One sincere thank you strengthens a bond. This is how transformation happens, not all at once, but in layers, through practice, through presence, through patience. So give yourself grace as you grow. Stay curious. Keep learning. And remember that your voice matters. Your ideas, your stories, your questions, they deserve to be heard. And the world is better when you share them with confidence and compassion. You already have everything you need to become a powerful communicator. The tools are within you. What you're doing now, reading, reflecting, practicing, is already setting you apart. So keep going. Keep showing up. And trust that with each step forward, you are becoming more of the communicator, the leader, and the person you were meant to be. If you enjoyed this, subscribe to the channel and watch the next summary to learn even more.